Ben. It's okay. This is our presentation on the engineering portfolio and judging presentation.
No.
Oh God. Okay.
Oh, shit.
That's okay. Cool. So we're gonna skip over the about us. That way we don't have to do a repeat. But first we're gonna talk a little bit about like what the engineering portfolio is for FTC, and then like how to start constructing it.
Okay, so the engineering portfolio is basically a book about your improvement and growth throughout the season. And this shows off what makes your team different from all the other teams. And it's basically like a resume where you show off your like team's journey throughout the season. Some requirements are that it has to be a 15-page max, cover page not included. It's required to be considered for any judged awards, and the cover page may have team information, and table of contents, but no engineering content in the cover page. And font size must be a minimum of 10 points. Like I think 10 points is a bit too small, but it's a bit too small. Make it like 12 probably. And it cannot include any other links to content because it's most likely going to be a like physical book. So yeah, you can't click any links on a piece of paper.
Okay. Cool. So basically how you want to start building your portfolio is you want to choose like a program or a software to use. So here are a couple options that we know that a lot of teams use. So Google Docs would be option number one. So there's some pros. So it's like easy collaboration because you can share your documents, and then it's pretty user friendly and it's also free. However, you don't have like full control over formatting because you have to deal with all the margins, and which doesn't sound like a big problem until you realize you only have 15 pages and then every single inch of space matters. And then there's Google Slides, which is what we use. So you can see that on the right. That's one of our portfolios from I think 2 years ago. So you can kind of see how you can like look at the various pages like as a whole in a way, and then also go and like edit one page at a time. So it's easy for collaboration and user friendly and free again, except you have full control over the formatting. However, it does have a harder to use user interface, and so you kind of have to zoom in and out a lot to edit, but it kind of depends on what display you have as well. And then another really popular one is Canva. There's a lot of design elements. It's user-friendly and free again. However, it lacks some versatility, and if you're going to use like the graphic elements that they have as part of the program, it's typically pretty generic designs that are kind of like not as good as they could be. However, a good alternative is Figma, which is like more professional and harder to use. Yeah, and then there's InDesign, which is probably going to be the most adaptable and versatile, high-performing program you could use. It has a ton of capabilities. However, it's like kind of a skill. It has to be learned. It's also not collaborative, and because it's part of the Adobe products, it's going to cost a fair chunk of money as well.
Okay, so for team portrayal, you want to, on the engineering portfolio, you want to decide what your team's defining traits are and how you want to show that through the portfolio. And then talk about what your team is proud of for the season. So like for one of the seasons, we were really proud of our outreach. So over here, you can tell like we talked a lot about our outreach. Show off some fun and unique characteristics of your team. We have a team mascot named Charlie, so that's what we put for one of our bios. And then also a structured portfolio. Structure the portfolio how your team is structured. So we structure our portfolio through like sub teams. Like we have build and programming and like outreach and project management. And then later we show like our robot assemblies and etc.
Okay, next is documentation. Documentation is very important, and you need to do it throughout the entire season, or else you're kind of shooting yourself in the foot a little bit for that one. So for notes, you're going to take meeting notes consistently with lots of detail, focusing on what was learned, why things were done, and how it contributed to the team season. And then for photos, you want to take photos of like any learning moments, really. So competitions, meetings, whiteboards, brainstorming sessions, sketches, outreach, CAD models. And then for storing photos, you want to keep them in a very easily accessible place together and ideally with labels. So for us, what works is we will use Google Drive and we'll put photos in there with like the dates. But especially for outreach events, because a lot of our team members typically use like Apple phones, we used Apple's photo shared albums as well, and that works pretty well for us.
Okay, next we're going to talk about making an outline. So you want to decide how you want to lay out your pages. On the side, you can tell like we numbered the different pages like about us, and it goes 1 to 15. So these are all the pages and basically everything we want within that page. So like I said before, organize how you organize this, how you organize your team. So as you can see, this is like team bios, then just like the sub teams, and then assign the content section pages to first and then fill in the content. So these are all the content sections, and then we like embedded another document that we were just going to fill in the content later, and you can always adjust it if needed.
Cool. So for designing your portfolio, so for inspiration, you want to look at the competition manual for guidelines and ideas for content to include, as well as there's tons of portfolios from other teams just available online. A lot of them typically tend to be like world competing teams, which is probably the people you want to learn from. And then for readability, you want to use a font size that's really easy to see. So for us, we use a minimum of 14-point font, and you want to keep it readable and simple. And then, so nothing too crazy. And then the color of the font should be in high contrast with the background. So like, you don't want to put like a blue text over a purple background. And then less is also more. So choose what's most important, cut the rest for the engineering notebook, or if it's not important enough for the present or the portfolio, you can move it to the presentation, or you can just put it somewhere else where you can show the judges. And then you want to make sure that it's visually appealing and you keep like harmony with your pages. So it should look like all your pages are from the same portfolio, not 15 different portfolios, basically.
So some general tips are that the competition manual and the judge manual are basically like rubrics and good resources to go see like what you need to include for your portfolio and what will be judged on. So you can always just like go back and like check off whatever you want your competition or whatever you want your engineering portfolio to be based off of. Use keywords to label the areas of your portfolio that cater to a specific award, and then also look at the criteria and different recommendations for awards that you want to win. I think there are like little underneath each award, there are some recommendations and criteria that for the different awards.
So next we're going to talk a little bit about how to build and construct your judging presentation.
So judging presentations are basically like an interview with the judges, a 5-minute interview, and then there's a Q&A session that lasts 5 to 10 minutes long. You need at least 2 student representatives, and mentors cannot take part in the interview. And then you also need a robot for the interview. You can use physical props, no cards, but no slides. So like you can take in some prototypes from during the season. The interview is the 5-minute like uninterrupted time to present to the judges about your team and the season, like what you did throughout the season. You're not judged on preparedness or public speaking skills, but instead like the content. But it's still a really good idea to prepare for the presentation because it just looks better. And then the Q&A sessions with the judges is after the interview.
So for getting started, you want to decide your narrative and what story you want to tell about your team. So like you want to think about what does your team represent? And then you also want to explicitly say like, what is the thing you're most proud of? So like last year, we worked really hard to get odometry implemented and effectively effective and consistent onto our robot. And so we explicitly stated in our judging presentation, the thing we are most proud of this season is our implementation of odometry. And then you also want to look at common themes in your season. So for us, if you take outreach, for example, what we did is we listed every single outreach event that we were ever participated in for the season, and we started just categorizing them. So like, did we work with industry professionals? Did we connect with the community? Did we connect and teach them to like younger kids? Did we host a bunch of events? Things like that. Like, who did we work with? Look for those common themes because those help you develop that narrative. And then you can also research how other teams make their presentations online. A lot of the times, teams are pretty secretive about their presentations, but there are still a decent amount who share theirs on the internet. And then presentations can also be in whatever format you choose. So like this could be like skits or speeches, kind of anything really.
So for the writing process, you want to outline the major points you want to cover during your presentation that basically show the narrative of your season. So this can be by major projects, by sub-team, or by the significance of the project. And then also refine your draft and have multiple people look at it, read it out loud, and then time it. So what we do is we make the draft, and then we have multiple team members go back, look at it, and then they're like, okay, it looks fine. And then we all read it out loud, like in single file, the different like lines. And then we try to time it. So it's like a 5-minute window, I guess. And then also keep in mind your audience and how you want to present your team. We present our team pretty formally, but there's always like ways you can present it formally and informally.
Okay. So part of the judging presentation is really about the Q&A session. So judges are going to try their best to prompt you to talk more about your team's journey, not so much quiz you on your knowledge. So like, you don't need to know every single step of the engineering design process, but you need to know how you used it to further your team's designs and things like that. Like you want to think it's like the application skills have on your team over just like what these skills are. And then you want to try to spread the answers among your team and help prompt your teammates to answer them. So for us, if we know that this person worked on this thing, but they're not necessarily going to answer the question just because they might feel a little shy that day or something, we'll kind of do a short answer and be like, hey, Lexi, do you want to talk more about this subject? And then also part of that a little bit is that within your team, you want to plan a way to tell if someone wants to speak next or answer the question first. So for us, because we like typically stand in like a single file line, whoever wants to answer the question just like steps forward out of the line. This helps basically reduce like moments, like kind of awkward moments where you like try to answer it at the same time because that wastes time and it looks a little funny. So it's typically better to just try to avoid that as much as possible. And then don't correct your teammates' answers. Like it just looks not great and you can always add on to other people's answers instead, but don't interrupt them as they're answering.
Okay, for practicing, you want to make sure you start practicing pretty early and frequently. So we usually start writing our first draft of the presentation right after the final league meet. So this helps maximize time and test different ideas for the presentation. And we also get feedback and make sure we use it. So we practice in front of our coaches, mentors, or some parents during like our meeting time. And so we'll set aside some time during the meeting to practice in front of our coaches. And we also practice answering some potential questions.
Cool. So I'm sure you guys have all seen the slide already, but if you guys ever have any questions, you can contact us there. And before we go to our Q&A session, there's just like a couple of updates that have come out with the competition manual since we've made this presentation. So in regards to the portfolio, the cover page now has more requirements. So it needs a table of contents, sponsors, logo, a motto, and a picture of a team or robot, and then like team organizations. So like for us, we're part of this nonprofit called Lake Robotics. So we would put that onto our cover page. And then if you're shooting for different awards, those award definitions have changed compared to previous years. So like for the engineering portfolio specific award called the Think Award, there's further definitions on things like engineering content requirements. So like you need to have evidence of using the engineering design process, like lessons learned, trade-off analysis / cost benefit analysis, and then mathematical analysis used to make design decisions. And then also like tech skills resources. So like how do you acquire new mentors? How do you learn from them and develop plans for learning new skills? So there's quite a few changes in terms of awards, and honestly, the best place to find answers for those would be the competition manual itself or the FTC forum. Yeah, but yeah, does anyone have any questions right now that we could answer? Cool. If not, then I think this is the last presentation for the day. So yeah, I think we're done for the day. If no one has any questions. Yes, there will also be another set of these sessions with different topics next week, same time as usual. Yeah. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out for us. Yeah. I think that's it.
Bye bye. Thank you for coming.